What Marilyn Monroe was truly afraid of: the lights that blinded the girl. The most photographed woman in the world spent her entire life trying to hide from the one person she could never escape: herself. We see the diamonds, we see the platinum curls, we see the icon who redefined desire. But if you look past the flashbulbs, you'll see a woman trembling in the dark. Marilyn Monroe wasn't afraid of the cameras. She wasn't afraid of the scandals. She was afraid of a ghost that lived inside her DNA. Today, we are peeling back the velvet layers of Hollywood's greatest myth to find the terrified girl underneath. This is what Marilyn Monroe was truly afraid of. Her first fear wasn't a shadow, it was a prophecy. Marilyn's mother, Gladys, spent much of her life in mental institutions. To the world, Gladys was a tragic footnote. To Marilyn, she was a glimpse into her own future. Every time Marilyn felt a flicker of sadness or a moment of confusion, she panicked. She asked herself, "Is it starting? Am I becoming her?" She lived in mortal terror of the gray. That was her word for the mental collapse she believed was coming for her. She didn't just fear losing her mind, she feared the white walls and the cold halls of the asylum. For Marilyn, the greatest horror wasn't death, it was being locked away and forgotten, just like her mother. This led to her second and perhaps most painful fear: the vacuum of abandonment. Marilyn was a product of the foster care system. She was a child of empty hallways and cold beds. She was a waif who belonged to no one. Even at the height of her fame, that little girl never left her. She was terrified that if she stopped being Marilyn, everyone would simply walk away. She believed that people didn't love her, they loved the light she projected. She once said, "I knew I belonged to the public and to the world, not because I was talented or even beautiful, but because I had never belonged to anything or anyone else." Her fear was that the moment the Marilyn suit came off, she would become invisible again. She wasn't afraid of being alone, she was afraid of being discarded. But there was a more physical fear that haunted her every day on set: the fear of the camera's judgment. It sounds impossible. How could the most beautiful woman be afraid of the lens? But Marilyn saw the camera as a predator. She knew that her beauty was a timer. She feared the day the camera would find a wrinkle, a flaw, or a sign of age. This is why she was notoriously late to every set. She wasn't being a diva, she was having panic attacks in front of her mirror. She would spend hours applying and removing makeup, trying to perfect the mask. She was terrified that if she wasn't perfect, she was nothing. To Marilyn, the camera was the only thing that gave her value, and she lived in fear of the day it would look away. Then there was the fear of the industry. Marilyn knew she was a piece of meat to the men in suits. She feared their power, but even more, she feared their control. She felt like a bird in a gilded cage. She fought the studios for better roles, for more pay, for respect. But every time she fought, she feared the consequences. She feared being blacklisted. She feared being replaced by the next blonde in line. She saw how Hollywood chewed up its icons and spat them out. She looked at the legends who came before her and saw their tragic ends. She knew she was a commodity, and she feared the day her market value would drop to zero. The 1960s brought a new, darker fear into her life: the fear of the secrets she carried. As she moved into the circles of the most powerful men in America, the fear of abandonment shifted into a fear of erasure. She began to realize that she knew too much. She feared that the very men she looked to for protection, the Kennedys, the power players, the insiders, were the ones she should be most afraid of. She felt the walls closing in. She felt the phone lines go quiet. She felt the shift in the air. She wasn't just afraid of being unloved anymore. She was afraid of being a problem that needed to be solved. Her final and quietest fear was the fear of the silence. Marilyn Monroe lived her life surrounded by noise, the screams of fans, the click of shutters, the roar of the crowd. but she was terrified of what happened when the noise stopped. She couldn't sleep without pills because the silence was too loud. In the silence, she had to face Norma Jeane. In the silence, she had to face the miscarriages, the failed marriages, and the hollow promise of fame. She feared the empty house in Brentwood. She feared the night because she didn't know if she would have the strength to wake up and put the mask back on the next morning. In the end, Marilyn Monroe's life was a battle between the girl who wanted to be seen and the woman who was terrified of being known. She conquered the world, but she never conquered the fear that she was unworthy of the love she received. She was a goddess to millions, but a stranger to herself. And that is the most chilling fear of all. To be the most wanted woman on earth, yet to feel like you are absolutely nothing. What do you think was Marilyn's breaking point? Was it the fear of losing her beauty or the fear of losing her mind? As we look at her final photos, we don't see a star, we see a woman who was tired of being afraid. Her story is a reminder that the brightest lights always cast the longest shadows. What happens when the world's fantasy becomes the girl's nightmare? Let's explore the dark side of the dream in the comments. Marilyn Monroe left us decades ago, but the girl she was trying to protect, Norma Jeane, is still waiting to be understood. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to find the human heart behind the Hollywood mask. Sleep well, Marilyn. The lights can't hurt you anymore.